So how do we understand the world around us? Do we construct a purely logical framework with which to overlay our experiences on? Or do we also partly rely on the supernatural, religion, and that which we don't fully understand to better grasp the world around us? According to philosopher and writer g.k.chesterton, it is almost certainly the latter. In this series of videos, we'll be exploring some of the great ideas he had to share with the world. But for this video, we're going to be talking all about how we understand through the unknown. Coming up. G.K. Chesterton, also known as the Prince of Paradox, was a master of wit and turning an argument on its head. He wrote his book Orthodoxy in response to criticism to his previous book called Heretics, in that it criticized his contemporaries without providing any overarching philosophy of his own. Thus, he responded to the challenge to write the book about his own beliefs, and a great book called Orthodoxy was born. Now, in it he wrote, "Man can understand everything by the help of what he does not understand." And this, he claimed, was the secret of mysticism. Now, mysticism, in all honesty, is kind of a tricky thing to define because its very definition has been debated by scholars for quite some time. But here we're talking specifically about Christian mysticism as opposed to a secular mysticism that we hear about more today. In Christian mysticism, it's more about a way of thinking with God behind all things, or a consciousness of God in all things. In the secular view, it's kind of an occult or supernatural existence, for example, in fortune telling or generally taboo practices of that sort. So Chesterton's quote summarizes the idea that we can better understand the world around us by accepting the few things that we don't fully understand. Namely, that Christianity and all of its mysteries give us the understanding of why we're here, our purpose on earth, and ultimately our destination. The things that the secular world alone does not give you. The purely logical view of the world doesn't answer for us. That science alone won't ever tell us. It's about purpose and meaning. And our belief in a God, and a Christian God in particular, answers those deep questions about why we're here and where we're going. An analogy that Chesterton gave was the sun, and he gave a great many examples throughout his book Orthodoxy and in his writings elsewhere. Now, the sun is so bright that you can't look directly upon it. Its brightness and intensity of light illuminates the entirety of the earth, along with providing warmth for the earth. And it's this clarity that allows us to function throughout our everyday life. Now, contrast the sun with the moon. The moon is a very weak light when it's there at all. And in truth, it's reflecting only a fraction of the light which originally comes from the sun in the first place. So the moon is a weak light. It's not actually a source of light, while the sun is a source of light and a very intense source of light at that. Now, an additional point that Chesterton makes is that the moon, you can break out a telescope out at night and stare at the moon all you want and observe its features throughout the entirety of the night. The sun, you can't do that. You'll go blind. But the moon you can stare at, you can focus on, you can learn everything there is to know about it. And you can see its circular shape, for example, at night. And the circular shape was what Chesterton was connecting to his second chapter called The Maniac. And in The Maniac, he details the circular logic that defines their mode of thinking. Now, Chesterton also said that mysticism keeps men sane, and he connected this with Twilight. Now, Twilight is a period of time where the sun is still just below the horizon. It's just before sunrise and just after sunset. And the sun still illuminates that lower sky with those red, yellow, and orange hues. And the Twilight has always had an association in lore and fantasy writings with the magical and the mysterious. This is exemplified really well in the old show called The Twilight Zone. And perhaps by no coincidence, the show's host, Rod Serling, always performed these brilliant monologues that offered very pointed wisdom based on the plots that occurred within the Twilight Zone.
You walk into this room at your own risk, because it leads to the future. Not a future that will be, but one that might be. This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the superstates that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace. The Chancellor, the late Chancellor, was only partly correct. He was obsolete. But so is the state, the entity he worshipped. Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. A case to be filed under M for mankind.
From the mysterious magical realm of the Twilight Zone, something that we couldn't logically explain or understand, the show offered everyday wisdom that really made you think. The acceptance of truth over contradiction is a particularly important part of this main idea. Now we see this all over the place in Christianity. For example, we see it in the doctrine that Christ is both fully man and fully God. And we also see this in the Trinity. God is God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, yet He's the same one God. Now this may all sound like hocus pocus to the non-Christian, but remember that science also holds truth over contradiction. A great famous example of this is wave-particle duality. This is a concept in physics that a particle has both a wave-like nature and a particle-like nature. You can take the electron, for example. The electron has a wave-like nature and a particle-like nature. And this isn't just a theoretical result that someone could magically come up with on paper. This is, by experiment, the physicists have determined that in some experiments the electron behaves as a wave, and in other experiments it behaves as a particle. It's both at the same time. We accept that truth of this duality over contradiction. Apart from contradictions, we routinely accept what we don't understand as true in science and reason. In mathematics, we use infinities, particularly in calculus, to calculate useful results. Now, I don't believe anyone can fully wrap their head around an infinity, but yet we use it all the time. And then another example is imaginary numbers, a construction based on the square root of -1, a non-physical thing. We use this all the time in science and engineering to do useful things as well. So mathematicians, engineers, and scientists are relying on things that we don't fully understand or that don't physically manifest to get useful results and do useful things. So infinities and imaginary numbers, if we accept them, become powerful tools with which we can better illuminate the world around us. Likewise, subjecting ourselves to a God that we can't fully comprehend has demonstrated the incredible flourishing of Western civilization, the likes of which has never occurred before. This is just one of the many great insights of G.K. Chesterton. This video was inspired by the book Orthodoxy. You can buy it using the link in the description below. It is hands down one of the most quotable books I've ever read. You will not regret picking up a copy and reading it for yourself. I'm happy to share what I learned about Chesterton in this video. Next time and throughout this series, we're heading into more territory covered by Chesterton because there's just so many great ideas to cover. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and especially leave a comment with your thoughts and opinions below. Thanks.